We have some breaking news in the world of Palantir. This is a news article that released on Telegraph's website. Telegraph is a United Kingdom publication. And why is it coming on a United Kingdom publication? Because Palantir has a lot of ties in the UK. We've got a big NHS contract coming out in the UK. So we're going to analyze why it's so interesting this came out on a UK media source. That UK media source was paywalled for $19 a month to be able to get access to that article. Your boy did not pay the $19 a month. So I'm sorry. I just didn't do it. And it's good that I didn't do it because that same article that Alex Karp gave an interview to came out as a press release today, right here, early in the morning, April 24th, 2023. Let's get into it. Palantir is supporting Ukrainian prosecutor general's investigation into war crimes. Now, this is a very, very unique piece of news that has come out about Palantir. So I'm going to read through it, and then we're going to get into analyzing exactly what's going on. Palantir Technologies has announced a landmark agreement to the Prosecutor General's Office of Ukraine, which will enable investigators on the ground and enable Europe to share, integrate, and process all key data relating to more than 78,000 registered war crimes. So all of the data in relationship to the stuff that Russia has done in Ukraine in the context of war crimes, guess who's analyzing all of that software and data? Palantir. The announcement signals a deepening of Palantir's support for Ukrainian resistance against Russian aggression, with the company already helping Ukraine militarily and the support of the resettlement of refugees in the UK, Poland, and in Lithuania. The news that Palantir was helping the refugee crisis that has been a byproduct of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that dropped in March 2022. In fact, that was one of the first articles I published on dailypalantir.com, which, if you're not subscribed to, please, dailypalantir.com/subscribe. Newsletter every single day. It would mean the world to me if you subscribe. So they've been working with refugees and what's been going on in the Ukrainian war for a while. It was around May 2022 that it finally came out that they have deployed their software on the battlefield. The OPG's war crimes register documents all recorded incidents of war crimes relating to the armed conflict on Ukraine. The majority relate to destruction of property, civil infrastructure, or residential apartments. Yet many entries on the register, which will be uploaded to Palantir software and fused with an array of case data, represent cases of willful killing, torture, rape, and deportation in locations such as, I'm not going to name those locations, and throughout many other parts of the country affected by the conflict. So these are all the things that Russian military / people that really just don't have the best intentions in Ukraine have been doing to the Ukrainian civilians, and these are crimes of war that Palantir is now responsible to manage from a data perspective. The partnership represents a Europe-wide initiative spearheaded by Palantir employees based across Europe, which will support the OPG's investigation into two anchor cases. One centered on the crime of aggression, focusing on Russian senior leadership who made the critical decisions, and another on the crime of genocide, which will cover more widespread and systematic attacks on the deportation of Ukrainian people due to their identity. Now, look, these are horrible things that are happening in Ukraine, and they are things that are outside of the actual war itself. Like, there's a war that's happening, and then there are war crimes, which all of the examples I named. And if they have data on this stuff and they can actually analyze why that's happening, how it's happening, and who to prosecute for it happening, you might as well use Palantir software to be able to analyze that stuff versus and to bring some justice to those things happening versus let it go under the hood. Among its capabilities and tasks, the software will enable integration of an open source intelligence and satellite imagery to construct a virtual map of war crimes evidence. Examples include evidence confirming the presence of Russian equipment in the proximity of crime scenes, witness statements given by victims to officials at the borders of countries who are helping to resettle refugees, or photographs and videos uploaded to social media by Ukrainian citizens. That's a really important use case of the software, basically taking all this intelligence that exists and satellite imagery plus the other things they mentioned and combining it into that basically ontology to be able to analyze how this is happening. Cataloging by prosecutors of the vast quantity of data to support workflows for removing data duplication, helping establish source reliability and identifying potential links across different sources of data. Establishing attribution by providing prosecutors with the tools for building a clear picture of the chain of command for Russian forces in Ukraine while mapping Russian military units to the criminal activity. And Ukrainian and international partners to securely and legally collate and share otherwise siloed information, ensuring proportional, tightly controlled, auditable access to data in order to protect witnesses, victims, and integrity of the prosecuted cases. These are the people that want to remain anonymous in the war crimes. It will also help to ensure the chain of custody, protecting evidence from being tampered with, and it's preserved throughout the investigative process. Alexander Karp, he said, the invasion of Ukraine represents one of the most significant challenges to the global balance of power. To that end, the crimes that are being committed in Ukraine must be prosecuted. Software is a product of the legal and moral order in which it is created and plays a role in defending it. We have built platforms to navigate the vast majority of sensitive data required for the prosecution of war crimes, and we are proud that our software is now being deployed in Ukraine to defend the West. Final comments, and then I'll get into some analysis. Prosecutor General of Ukraine says, our goal is to build a web full of and comprehensive accountability for international crimes. Individual responsibility of Russia's military and political leadership is indispensable part of this. To prove these crimes, we have to analyze a vast amount of evidence. For example, when investigating the crime of genocide, we looked for the genocidal elements in individual war crimes, and at the same time, examine patterns of criminal actions of the Russian military wherever the occupying troops were stationed. We have more than 78,000 war crimes. Analyzing this amount of evidence would be virtually impossible without modern IT solutions. I highly appreciate the decision of Palantir Technologies to provide Ukrainian prosecutors with access to best-in-class data analysis software. This is a big freaking deal. Now, why is this a big deal? There's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, as the Ukrainian general said, this is a vast amount of data that legacy IT solutions or IT products are just not going to be able to resolve, particularly because of two reasons. Number one, the siloed nature of that data having to come together in one place and then being able to like make sense of that, which is the entire value proposition of Palantir, right? Can you take siloed data, put it together in one place, and then make a decision based off that data so you actually have some relevance from all those siloed pieces of data? And then number two is the pattern recognition. Remember, Palantir was created on the backs of on the backs of 9/11, where Peter Thiel said, hey, let's take the back-end algorithms that are detecting fraud, which is essentially pattern matching and risk mitigation within PayPal, and let's bring that to the government sector to stop terrorist attacks. That is the origination of Palantir. And so that type of level of sophistication when it comes to the technology, being able to integrate all that data and then understand what's going on, that is very unique to Palantir. And the reason it's unique to Palantir is because there's not that many other companies doing it for Ukraine. In fact, I don't think there's any companies doing this for Ukraine other than Palantir. So from a technical perspective, and as we talked about in terms of the examples, the open source intelligence, satellite imagery, bringing that all together, that's incredibly important. Number two, from what I understand, Palantir is still supplying this for free. So this landmark agreement with the Prosecutor's General Office of Ukraine, again, from what I've read in other places, I believe this is free. I do not think Palantir is charging for this, which is the best thing you could ask for as a Palantir shareholder. The reason why we're in higher talks with Poland and higher talks in Lithuania and getting $91 million from the UK Ministry of Defense, which is a deal we got about 3 months ago. Why are we getting these contracts? Why is Alex Karp getting to speak to these heads of state and really being able to sell them on the vision of Palantir? It's because we're not charging some ridiculous amount of money for a international war that is happening right now. Like that this is the best, it's you don't want to say it like this, but this is the best form of marketing at the end of the day for Palantir, because their software was built for this. This is the biggest war that's going on right now. If you could implement their software and that software could actually solve the problems, which in the context of the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's investigation into war crimes, it seems like this is the only IT solution that exists to be able to solve those problems. And that is the best marketing for other countries, especially in the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere, in terms of Western Europe, that are looking for different IT solutions they can implement to protect them and to have more defense. And so this is there's just not that many other people that are doing what Palantir is doing here. When Karp says the invasion of Ukraine represents one of the most significant challenges to the global balance of power, to that end, the crimes that are being committed in Ukraine must be prosecuted. This is a question of justice, right? So when he says, to that end, the crimes that are being committed in Ukraine must be prosecuted, either you feel that the rape, the killing, the systematic forms of genocide, the unilateral forms of aggression, either we prosecute that or we don't. And as a people, if we decide not to prosecute that stuff, we are setting a precedent that stuff doesn't deserve to be prosecuted. That stuff, it's okay if justice doesn't come to the people who have committed those crimes. And it's like, well, if that's the precedent we're setting, that's going to be a very deeply philosophically and materially disturbing precedent. And so obviously Ukraine does not want to set that precedent. I don't think any country wants to set that precedent, but you've got to have the technical capabilities to be able to even try to prosecute all that stuff, which means if there's vast amounts of data, you've got to be able to analyze that at scale and be able to figure out what to do as a result of understanding this stuff. So this is big news in the world of Palantir. Again, this is not going to yield any money. I don't think this is going to be some type of substantial contract, but already what I was looking on Twitter is that there's other news sources that speak different languages. Like there's news sources in Spanish that are covering this news, right? So this news dropped on The Telegraph, which is a UK publication. Then it permeated to a bunch of other different publications. Now it came as an official press release. There's Spanish newspapers that are covering this. Like, this is the type of news as a Palantir shareholder. If you believe in the long-term trajectory of the company, you really want everyone in the world to know that there is one company in Ukraine that is actually solving some of these overarching problems in relationship to war crimes. And that's outside of all the stuff they're doing on the battlefield with Ukraine in order to fight back against Russia. It's Palantir. And the large contracts we're going to get as a result of this, we're talking about multi-hundred million, close to billion-dollar contracts we're going to get in the defense space because of the work we were able to do with Ukraine, is going to happen. It's just a question of giving it time, making sure people understand what Palantir was doing, and quite frankly, and most importantly, getting the job done, right? Like actually helping the Ukrainian people so that we can say our software did the job. And then after that, money is just a byproduct of doing something good, right? But first and foremost, you got to do something good and prove that you can get the job done. I think Karp and team recognizes that in a meaningful way. So very, very, very big news in the world of Palantir, helping the Office of Ukraine register 78,000 war crimes and be able to figure out who did them, why they did them, and then ultimately bring justice to the people that were affected by the people that decided to hurt innocent civilians in the country of Ukraine.